In this video, I'll be going over a simple automation you can steal to predict your client churn on autopilot. It's super simple. I'm going to show you what the automation does. We're going to build it live together on a no-code platform. So it's going to be super easy for you to actually set up. And then I'm actually going to show you how you can use this to actually predict churn and take some action from this video. So the way this automation is going to be split down is very simple, guys. It's nothing too complicated. Four main steps. First, we're going to get a client list. So this is just so we know who to scrape. Then we're actually going to scrape the communication. Think about communication on Slack, email, however you actually communicate with your clients. Then we're going to actually create a summary. And in this prompt over here, we're going to ask the AI to basically filter it for us, depending on whether they're at risk, if they're normal, if they're doing good. So have a very, very clear summary for the CSMs. And very lastly, we're actually going to send the summary to someone and hopefully hold them accountable to actually using that as ammo to be proactive. And this is literally a 4-step plan. This is super, super simple. And we're going to build it live together so there's no confusion of how you can actually set this up in your agency. I mean, my goal for this is that by the end of this video, you have this live and you can begin using this straight away in your agency. And this is one of the tools that you can start building in your agency to give you all the things you need to be proactive. Because at scale, being proactive is very, very difficult. I mean, when you're managing 100 plus clients, having the ability to be able to predict when someone's results are slipping or when someone's experience isn't as good as other people is what's going to make the difference in you providing an A-class service to your clients and the average C-class service that everyone else is providing at scale. Again, this is a lot easier when you have a few clients because it's very easy to manage. But when you have more than 20 clients and now you have to hire CSMs and you don't have a clear overview, you're not talking to everyone on a regular basis, it becomes very hard to gauge how everyone is performing and how everyone is kind of having an experience with you in your business. So you need these different tools to be able to give you the ability to be proactive while still managing a ton of different clients. So let's start with what we actually need before we get started. The first thing we need is a client list. So this is an example of a very, very simple spreadsheet that most agencies have, and it's basically just a list of their clients. Now, there's 3 most important fields that we really care about here. The client name, obviously, we need to know who we're actually referring to. We need a status. So this will let us know if they're active, if they're paused, if we've lost them, anything like that. And most importantly, their Slack ID. Now, in this context, I'm going to be using Slack as the main communication platform, and I'm going to be assuming that you're using Slack as your main communication platform, but it doesn't always have to be Slack. In fact, it can be anything. You can even do a similar process with email, which I'm going to show you how to do. The only reason I've included a Slack ID specifically in this sheet over here is so we can have a way to actually identify the client, or more importantly, the client thread that we're going to be scraping. And I do have some additional fields such as the assigned CSM and the reason summary, but you don't need all of this. This is the main 3 ones that you need. We need a client name to be able to know who we're actually talking to. We need a status to know that we only want to do this for active clients. We don't necessarily want to do this for lost or paused clients. And then we need the actual Slack ID or some sort of way to identify which specific thread we need to scrape. So for example, think of emails. This could be the specific email, so we know what email to scrape. This will allow us to basically run through each of these clients automatically and have an identification of who we need to scrape, who we don't need to scrape, and where we actually need to scrape information from. So if you don't have something like this, then take a second to pause and try to collect this together. Ask your team members. All the agencies I've worked have something like this, no matter how unorganized or out of date it is. But I would recommend just getting all your active clients on a sheet and adding their Slack ID. In this example, there's a Slack channel ID, again, because we are going to be using Slack to actually scrape this. Now, the second thing we need is going to be a automation platform, more specifically a no-code automation platform to make your life a bit easier. All these platforms are platforms that will allow you to set the different automations to make your life a bit easier. The reason I'm going to be using automation here rather than having a team member go through this manually, which you could theoretically, is because we want to save some time. We don't want to have one of your team members open up every single one of the clients' accounts, copy and paste that chat into ChatGPT, then generate a summary. Again, when you have about 20 different clients, it's super, super easy. But when you get to the point where you have 100 plus clients, that gets much, much harder. So we don't want that. And in this case, we're going to be using a no-code automation platform to actually bring this alive. In this video, we're going to be using make.com, which again is a no-code automation platform. There's a ton of different videos going over how to actually use make.com. And I assume a majority of you will have heard of something like make.com, Zapier, and N8N before. In reality, they're all fairly similar. All they're basically doing is repackaging APIs for you to avoid any technical jargon. They're just basically connecting different software together. So in this case, I'm in my make.com account. They have a free account. You can sign up. I'm not affiliated to them. Doesn't really matter which one you use. I'm going to go ahead and create a new scenario. And the first thing I want to do is I want to get my client sheet. And within Google Sheets, I'm just going to scroll down to actually get rows. You can actually even search for it or get range values in this case. And all I want to do is I want to get all my different active clients. And this is what we're going to do it. So first thing first, you're going to go ahead and connect to Google. It's literally just as simple as pressing add, and sign it in through Google, and then you're pretty much good. In this case, mine is already connected, so I can skip a step here. I'm going to go to search. I'm going to search within my drive. And in this example, I am looking for my client example spreadsheet. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to go back to make. I'm just going to change this to search from all. And within search from all, I'm going to put the ID finder and enter the keywords, and it should be able to find it for us. As you can see over here, we have two different ones. I'm going to assume it's this one, but we can always double check it after by looking at our sheet names. Fake clients. Let's see if that's correct. There you go, fake clients. So this is the correct sheet. We know we've linked up the correct one. And now for the range, I'm just going to put A1 to Z. This doesn't really matter. We can always change this after. And I'm going to say, yes, it contains headers. And the headers are in A1 to Z1. Now, if I go ahead and run this now, just by saving this first, what it's going to do now is going to get a record of all the different clients we have on a sheet. As you can see over here. In this case, we have 101. And these are basically a list of all the different clients that we have within document. But as I showed you guys earlier, we don't want to get every single person that we have on that sheet, because every single person on that sheet is not necessarily active. As you can see over here, we have some lost clients, we have some paused clients. We only care about the guys that are active. That's pretty much simple as that. So within my make.com account, I'm just going to go back over here, and it's good just frameworks, guys. Whenever you're doing different things, name what you're doing. So in this case, I'm going to put get client sheet, and I'm going to actually name my automation. In this case, it's going to be my weekly scrape. So now that we've actually renamed this, I want to actually set up a filter, because we don't want to get everyone. As you can see here, we have a list of 101 clients, and not all of these guys are active. So the way I'm going to do this, guys, is I'm going to add a new module. And this step, we're going to move on towards the second part of this, which is scraping the information from Slack. But in this case, I'm just going to search for a random one for now. And then I just want to show you how to set up the filter. So within here, we're going to click on in between the path, and now we can set up a filter. Now this is going to be our active client filter. And as you can see over here, I only care for active clients. So for this, I'm going to get the status. I'm going to put is equal to active. So now only people that are actually active will be able to pass through and actually go to the next step. Now we can actually test this if I just add another module here, and I put maybe set variable. Ignore all of this. I'm just doing this so we can actually test it out. And what you should see is that rather than the 101 clients that come through, we should only see active clients actually coming through. And again, we can go and test it by running it. As you can see, now from the 100 that we have, only 67 of them were actually active. And this is what we care about, because we don't want to do this for the people that are not active. We only care about doing this for the people that are active. Now, you can optionally add another filter here. For example, you can only add a filter when they have a Slack ID. So you actually have something to scrape. But again, this doesn't really matter. This is more so optional. I am going to add this in now just to make my life a bit easier. So I'm going to go Slack ID exists, which basically means that they actually need to have a Slack ID. And for example, if I go back to my sheet, and I delete one of these Slack IDs, so say for spicy noodle, and we go back to our make.com account, and I run this again, this should now be 66, because now one of these people don't have a Slack ID, so they shouldn't pass through the filter. And that's pretty simple, guys. So now we set up the automation that gets all the different clients, and only filters for the active clients. We need to talk about how we can actually scrape their Slack communication for the past 10 days. Now again, in this example, I'm using Slack, but this doesn't really matter what you use. You can have a very, very similar concept with email. And if we have some time, I'll also show you how to do that through email rather than Slack specifically. But let's go over what specifically we're trying to do. All we're trying to do here is get any sort of communication that we have with a client in the past 10 days. This is what we're going to be feeding into the AI to spot any red flags, give us any warning signs, or even just give us some guidance on how to best communicate with these clients based on their preferences, or even, for example, maybe identify if they're being quiet. And to do this, we need to first get all our Slack conversations. Now, in this example, I've got my Slack. Now, in order to prevent me from doxing any of my clients and sharing information I don't need, I'm not actually going to be scraping one of my client active channels, but I'm going to be showing you how you can do this for one of your channels. And the channel we're going to be using in this example is the daily motivation channel. So first thing we need to do is get the actual channel ID. In order to do that, very simply, we can just click on the channel over here. And as you can see here, the channel ID is presented to us over here. Hopefully you guys can actually see that. I'm just going to copy this. And then in this case, we're going to pretend that we are Mr. Zippy Sprinkles. And I'm going to add that channel ID over here. This is the channel ID that we're going to be scraping in this example. In reality, you'll be scraping your actual client IDs. You're not going to be using random automation. But in this case, because I don't necessarily show our client conversations, I'm going to be using a channel that we use for a daily motivation message that we send to everyone every morning. If you want a video on that, let me know. Now, the next step we're going to do here is actually making a API call over to Slack. Before that, I'm just going to go over to my Slack module. And for this, I'm going to scroll all the way down to make an API call. Now, again, here you're going to need a connection. So similar to what I showed you before for Google, what basically done over here is I've added a new module. I've searched for Slack as one of the apps. And again, this is why no-code tools are a bit easier because they already package everything for you. And I scrolled all the way down to the bottom where it says make an API call. Now within here, I'm going to make an API call, and this is basically where I'm going to be collecting data for that specific channel. In terms of adding a connection, it's fairly simple. All you need to do is press add, go for connection type, go for user in this case, and name it, go to save, and then it will pop up a nice filter that will basically get you to log into Slack. Again, I don't need to do this for this example because I'm already logged in. I've already authorized everything, but that's pretty much it. You need to add that in. Now, in this case, what we're looking to do is use this specific URL, which is just an endpoint to the Slack API. And we're going to be getting the conversations.history. This will basically pull up a conversation for that specific account. Now, rather than a get, this is going to be post. You don't really understand all of this. It's just like the content type side of things and how the different API calls work. And if we scroll down, there's a couple of different messages that we want to import in. So the first thing over here within the body, I'm going to go ahead and change all of these. So in this case, the channel is a channel ID. This is basically the identifier for the conversation that we actually want to scrape. In this case, I'm going to scroll down, and within my Google Sheet, I'm looking for the Slack ID that I entered within the actual sheet. So as you can see here, now that's entered in. Now this is going to search for the specific sheet for the specific client, which is super, super important. In terms of orders to latest, this is basically the date range of conversations that we want to do this for. And you can change it to 30 days, and now rather than doing it on the past 10 days, we're going to do this for the past month. But I like to keep it as 10 as I don't want to get too many conversations on this. I don't want to kind of overwhelm the AI with too much information. And this is just meant to be like a weekly snapshot, so this gives us context of what the past 10 days have been like on Slack. And for the latest, which is the most recent, I'm going to put now. This is nothing too complicated. All we're basically doing here is adding days to today's date, and you can do this within make.com. And we are also formatting the date so it's in this specific uniform code, which I forgot the name of, but it's the way that Slack, the API, actually wants it. And that's pretty much it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to press save, and then we're going to run this with an example of the Slack ID that we had previously. Again, I showed you guys how to get that within Slack. It's super, super easy to actually accomplish this. And I'm just going to delete the I because I don't think that was there previously. And I'm just going to press OK, and it should run. And all this basically means is a very common error is that this specific connection that we added in doesn't have the scope that we need to actually do the conversations.history. Now, if you look at the Slack API, make this too complicated for you guys, but these are all the different scopes that we need. And in this case, these are user scopes: channels history, groups history, IM history, and MPIM history. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to our Slack over here, and I'm going to go ahead and add a new connection. So in this case, I already have one of my apps that already do this for me, but I'm just going to add a new one for you guys to make it a bit simple. So I'm going to go to users, and I'm going to add different additional scopes here. And in this case, I'm going to add all the different scopes that we actually need to make this work. So as you can see here, I've got my channel scope. I've got my groups scope. I've got my IM history and my IMPM history. And guys, all this is us basically just giving permission to our specific connection, because I think the standard permission comes with certain features, and we're basically just adding more features to that. So I'm going to go press save. Now it's going to pop up for me, and I'm just going to go reconnect it. I'm going to make sure it's my actual account that we're actually logging into, and then I'm going to go allow. And that's pretty much it. We've got our connection sorted with all the different scopes that we need. And now if you go ahead and save this and run this again, hopefully, if all goes well, we should be able to make this work. So as you can see here, I'm going to get the same channel ID that I got previously. I'm going to press OK, and we should get a conversation. And as you can see here, if we open up the body of this and we go to messages, these are all the different messages that have been sent in the past 10 days. Now, again, in this case, it's very easy because I'll show you guys a Slack channel. It's literally just daily motivation every single morning. It doesn't get much better than this. However, the reason this is interesting is because when you just do this in your Slack channels with the actual, team channel, when you do this in your Slack channel with actual clients, you'll be able to see all the different messages that are being sent. And most importantly, you can actually see who's actually sending them. So it's just super, super interesting because this is all the different messages. There's a bunch of metadata, there's a bunch of blocks, and it's really, really cool. In this case, it tells you who sends them in the username over here. So this is our data. What we've done here, guys, is we first gotten all different clients. Now we've basically searched the Slack for all of the different clients. And again, I'm going to show you what this looks like. In this case, I'm just changing the filter rather than exists to is equal to in this specific Slack channel I need, just because I don't have 100 different examples to actually show you. But now if I do this, it's going to scrape all the different clients. It's going to pass by through the active clients, and then we're going to search the Slack channel individually for each of those active clients. Everything so far super, super simple, guys. The next thing we need to do is we need to get this conversation that we've just retrieved from Slack. And again, it doesn't have to be Slack. You can do the same thing through email. Matter of fact, let's quickly cover that. If right now I want to do this for email, I'll go to Gmail, and I'm going to go search for emails. And again, this is where you can set up different filters. Now, in this case, I would increase your limit depending on how many emails you actually send into clients. And I go to advanced settings. And as you can see, there's a ton of different filters we can actually use here. We can set specific filters for the date. So from this date to this date, which again, you just set past 10 days here by going over here, selecting a date format, going over to add days. Where is it? Over here. Setting now as the general timestamp. And we're going to do -10. And then from 2 is now. So this is basically be able to scrape the past 10 days. And then in the past emails, you can do this by sender email address. You can do this by receiver email address. I mean, there's a bunch of different filters. And again, it's a similar principle. The only difference here is that rather than using Gmail, we're using Slack. And it's literally just that simple. But now we actually need to summarize it. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to add a new module. And within the new module, I'm going to search for OpenAI, which is basically ChatGPT. So I'm going to go over down and I'm going to go over to generate a response. And in this case, I've already got my OpenAI connection. Well, obviously not. Let me just choose one of the up-to-date ones. And in order to add an OpenAI connection, this is fairly simple, guys. I'm not going to go over it because I already have a video on how to do it. All you have to do is basically go to OpenAI, sign up, create a connection, create an API key, and connect it over. Again, really, really simple, guys. If that sounds complicated, there's a million different tutorials going over out there on how to actually do that. Once you've actually got your connection, you're going to choose your model. In this case, I'm just going to choose the latest, which will be 5.1. And this is where we're going to add our prompt. Now, there's a lot of different things we can add in this prompt, but the most important thing is we want to pass data from the previous step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the client name. I'm going to pass the actual assigned CSM, and I'm going to pass the recent risk. And the most important part of this whole thing, I want to pass all the messages, guys. This is what the AI prompt is actually going to use to analyze the messages and give us some sort of prediction on how the health score is performing. So now I'm going to just say aloud a quick prompt. I'm going to use a transcriber just to make it a bit easier. You are an assistant which is in charge of analyzing Slack messages for each client every 10 days. What you've been providing with is all the different client name, the assigned CSM, the recent risk, and all the messages that have been sent from and to this client in the past 10 days on Slack. Your job is to identify and predict churn. You should use these conversations as an indication of how the client is performing, any potential early red flags that we can notice so the relevant CSM can jump in and help them out, and any other potential risks that you can detect. And that's pretty much it. Now, we're going to talk about in a while towards the end of this video of how you can actually use this to really predict churn and fine tune it for your specific modules. But in this case, I'm super happy with this. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press save and I'm actually going to run this, guys. So what it's going to do is going to get my client sheet. It's going to make an API call to get all different conversations. And again, this is just an example channel. I might try to do this with a different channel if I can find maybe like an order client or anything like that. And now it's going to basically generate a response based on our prompt over here. Now, this might take a minute, especially the new models. They're a bit slower, but I'll just wait until it comes back. So in this case, it's gone ahead and generated prompt, and we can actually have a look at it if you open up the result. So here's a churn assessment for Zippy Sprinkles, which is the name, and CSM Jack. Observe activity. All messages are in the period for motivation bot. There are no client messages. So effectively, there's no activity. Risk assessment, churn level risk, medium high due to silence engagement. There's no explicit negative symbols. And it basically just provides us a breakdown of exactly what's happened in this specific Slack thread. You know what, guys? I'm actually going to pull up one of my client channels and we're going to basically be analyzing one of those to see how we're performing, if anyone has any risk factors. Now, the reason this is important is because it allows you guys to have an example of what this looks like in real life for a lot of different people. So hopefully I don't have to blur out too much. It shouldn't be anything too sensitive, but still we need to be careful because this is actual clients. So what I'm going to do is we're actually going to do this live from a sheet. I'm going to add a new one. So this time we're going to do Chunky Mech Wobble. And this is now one of my client channels that we have over here. And I'm going to add a filter that the Slack ID contains, and then I'm going to put CO. So over here, now I'm going to run this again. And now you're going to see it's going to be 2 rather than 1. So we've got the daily motivation channel was the original one. But after this is complete, it's going to go for the second client. And now imagine this in your guys' agency that rather than going for 1 client, it's going to go for 2 clients. And obviously all the different rest of the clients that have an associated Slack channel ID or anything like that. So as you can see here, it's done the first generation and now it's going through the second one. And the second one is going to be an active client message. So you get an idea of what that looks like. Now, obviously our service is amazing. So there shouldn't be any red flags in this example, especially for the one I've chosen. We've been smashing it for them recently, but this should give you an idea of what this kind of looks like with a real conversation and real messages that have been sent out. So guys, I'm not going to scroll through this full message because it starts kind of containing a bit more sensitive information for the client. And again, I don't want to dox them for no reason, but as you can see here, this is one of our clients and this is a breakdown of how we've done so far in the Slack. Now, as you can see over here, it basically gives us a summary of all the different relationship and how's everything been going. Obviously, again, we've been doing great, but I hope this gives you like a real world example of how this would actually look like with actual conversations. Now we have a summary message from the client channels. The last thing we need to do is actually send this message somewhere. As you can see over here, we need to actually send a summary. Now, in this case, I'm just going to store this within a Google Sheet, but you could optionally send this to your CSMs, even send it directly in the Slack channel, depending on how you do this, or send it in a specific group chat. In this case, I'm just going to update this sheet. So I'm going to go to Google Sheets. I'm going to go update row. And for this, I'm going to choose this specific example app that we just used. So again, I'm going to go for search from all. I'm going to go ID Finder. I'm going to put example client sheet. And I'm going to choose the first one. Exact same thing we did at the start of this video, guys. And within the example client sheet, I'm going to go over choose fake clients. Row number is going to be the row number that we got at the very beginning here. And then for the actual status we're actually updating is the recent summary. And for this, I'm just going to dump this result over here, which is basically what we got from ChatGPT. So again, now what we're doing is we are getting all our clients, we're getting the past conversations in the past 10 days, we're generating a summary, and then we are updating a row with our summary. Now, I could actually add an additional step here to actually send a summary somewhere, which I will just to give you guys an example. So I'm going to send that back to this original channel that we have over here. So I'm going to go to channel ID, copy that, go back over here. And then for the text, I'm just going to dump it straight in terms of the actual result. I'm not going to make it look too pretty. I'm going to press save. And now if we go ahead and run this, what we should see happen, it's going to get that summary. It's going to generate a summary. It's going to update that Google Sheet with the summary. And then it's going to go ahead and send a message in Slack with the summary. Now, again, this is an example we're using 2 clients, but if I had the Slack channel as a D for every single one of the clients in the sheet, this would run for every single client. And every single week, I'd get a summary of any proactive issues that we can kind of face. And again, if you wait until the end and once we finish this build, I'm going to show you exactly how you can really tailor this to AI to actually make the feedback actionable and actually useful. Because, you know, AI can get a bit hallucinating sometimes. Even though it might say a lot of good stuff, a lot of it will be rubbish, and we don't want all of that in exactly in our prompts. I'm going to show you how you can really prompt this to make it a lot more relevant to your specific agency, so you can actually use it to predict churn, not just to get a nice summary that looks nice in a YouTube video. So over here, it's gone ahead and done the first scrape. If we open Slack back up within our daily motivation channel, it's gone ahead and dropped both of the kind of encouragement. So we have the first one over here and the second one. And then if we go back to our Google Sheet where we have all our risks, you can see it drops all of that together over there as well within the actual spreadsheet. So how you can basically use this and actually create the automation. Now, if you do know automation, they're going to be hosted in my school community. Check the link below. You can get more details on that. It's 100% free. Doesn't cost you anything. You can get it for you guys. I've tried to make the tutorial as simple as possible, regardless of how quick it was, so you can just build it yourself. So you don't have to join a community and get a template. You can just follow along exactly what I did in this video, from the permissions to set up the channel, so you can just steal it from me, basically. Now, other thing that's important to kind of mention it before we go over how you can actually use this to predict churn and really tailor it to make it a bit better, rather than, again, just a random summary that looks good on a YouTube video, is understanding that this is a small part in a much bigger system. Because in reality, when you're trying to be proactive, there's a lot of different things you need to look at. It's not just the communication that you've had in the past 10 days. You need to look at actual results. So I wanted to point this out because being proactive has a lot of different things. And like I said at the start of this video, all this is a tool that will allow you to be proactive, especially at scale, which is hard to do. But in a tool set, you have more than one tool. So don't feel as if you set this up, it'll be the only tool that you'll need to be able to be proactive and save your clients from leaving. Because even though it will help a lot, again, especially at scale, it's not going to be the thing that saves you, right? You need to give your clients actual results. So for example, let's say you have a lead gen agency, the actual qualitative side of things, which is things like the conversations or maybe, I don't know, analyzing your calls, is just one part of a much larger system which analyzes their lead stats. So how many leads have they gotten? Analyze the appointment stats. How many appointments have they gotten? How many appointments showed up? Analyze the conversion stats. So how many leads were converted? How many closes did they get? Anything like that. And again, this is just one piece in a much larger system. I really wanted to emphasize this, guys, because I don't want you now to set this up and then come back to me saying, hey, I did this and it didn't actually help me out. Yes, because this is just one of the tools you can use. In reality, there are other things that you're going to need to set up in order to actually be proactive at scale. But this is a stepping stone in terms of getting you that direction and allowing you to do this. Now we actually talk about how we can actually use this to predict client churn. And the first thing we need to talk about here is how you can actually tailor the prompt. As you saw, guys, it took me maybe like 5 seconds to actually write out the prompt. I mean, it was super simple. All I basically did was use the transcriber to write out the prompt. But this is not great. And as you saw from the report, even though the report looked good, it looked very thorough, especially me knowing myself, I would actually read through, or my team would actually even read through and pay much attention to. This is why it's so important to actually tailor this so that the prompt has more context on specifically how you run your agency and the context behind the conversations and what red flags to spot. So let's talk about how you can actually do that. The first thing you need to do is you want to get all the different communication from past clients that have churned. So go through maybe some of your churned accounts, again, whether you do Slack or email, doesn't really matter. Get all the different friends and paste all of that into ChatGPT or any sort of AI model of your choice. Let's say client A churned a week ago. I would get all the past communication from the past 30 days or 60 days from client A, and I'll dump that into ChatGPT. Now I'll do the same thing, let's say for client B, who maybe has churned a month ago, and for client C, who's churned maybe 6 months ago, whatever it may be. Get at least maybe 4 examples of clients that have churned and paste all the communication from the past 60 days before they actually churned out into ChatGPT. What we're basically doing here is building context, guys. And my opinion is that context is the best way to kind of utilize AI and give it much better responses. Because if the AI has better context on your specific process and specifically in how you do things, you're going to be able to get much better outputs from it. This is why when we use AI, we try to give as much context or as much relevant context as possible. So for example, an example of context is what we're even doing in this video. We're not just saying, hey, give me a summary of this client and whether it is risk or not, because then it wouldn't know. What we're doing is we're giving context of the messages from the past 10 days and then asking it to create a summary. And again, from that, we get much better prompt. Now, think of you getting the communication from the past clients that have churned as an additional line of context. And that's basically all that we're doing. So get the communication from clients that have previously churned, dump that all into ChatGPT, and basically ask it to identify any early warning signs that the client was actually not happy with the results or not happy with the service or anything like that. And this is the animation that we're going to feed into the prompt. So from that, you can dump whatever ChatGPT says in the prompt. And again, if I'll show you how to actually do that very simply within Make, if you go to the ChatGPT module, you can just basically change the prompt by adding different things here. So for example, you'd add the AI recommendations from churn clients. And you can also add your own preferences of different things on how you want the report. So for example, you could say, keep it under 60 words or, anything like that. You can basically just, not words, but you can really amend this and make this special for you. But you need to be able to actually kind of slightly shift the prompt because again, we did it together in like 5 seconds. It's not the best prompt in the world. And I'm sure you can do a lot more with this. So the most important thing I'll say is get that recommendation from previously churned clients. So it's able to actually identify real examples of churn clients and how they were responding on Slack so you get a better idea of it. And then add your own little twist to it. Like for example, say your company name, say what you do, and anything else like that, which again, we'll try to give it a bit more context. The second thing is come back to this very, very simple picture. This looks like a very, very cool gym. And I'm not just saying that because of the fact it's orange. It looks like a great gym. All the equipment looks really, really high quality. But just because you have a gym like this doesn't mean you're going to look like this. Strongest man in the world. You may have all the most amazing tools ever in your agency, which will guarantee that you're going to do so well. But that's not reality, guys. Even though you might have the best tools in the world, if you don't actually use them, and if you don't actually go to the gym and actually work out, then this is not going to mean anything. So this is the most important part. The system actually works, but you need to actually get your team or yourself to actually use this system. So this is what I would do to actually do that. First things first, automate this. So again, if I go back to Make, over here, I can set the scheduling to when I want this to run. And let's say I want this to run every week on Monday at 1:40. And then I'm going to go ahead and actually launch this. Now, every Monday, this is going to run. I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to get a message on Slack reminding me that I've got all these reports I need to go ahead and check out. This is one of the ways you can actually use it. And then the second part is just enforcing it a bit more with your team, guys. Try and be proactive with your team that know, hey guys, we're going to do this new thing with the summary reports, and this is how it's going to work, and this is how you can actually use it. And again, the whole idea is that you want people to actually use it because you can have the best tools in the world, but if you don't actually use them, it's not going to mean anything, and you're not going to be looking like this, which is again the strongest man in the world. Don't know if you want to look like this, but you get the idea. You need to actually use the equipment that you have, or else it's not going to mean anything. So the best way to do that is automate it so it's scheduled automatically. You don't have to wait for someone to manually run this. And secondly, hold your team actually accountable to checking out the summaries and actually doing something from the summaries. So for example, if maybe identifies that this person's at risk because, I don't know, they've been complaining on Slack or they've been asked for something that hasn't been complete for the past 10 days, get your team accountable to actually completing that and listen to the AI summary. And also get them accountable to give you some feedback on the summaries. What I say to everyone is the first version of this is the worst version it's ever going to be. And it's only with feedback that's going to be getting better and better. So try and get your team to actually give you feedback on it, how to improve the summaries, how they can make their life a bit easier with the summaries, anything like that, and basically go from there. But guys, that is pretty much it. Again, guys, this is big part of a much, much bigger system. Looking at communication is just a small part in how you can actually predict client churn. What we do for all of our clients is set up a system that uses visibility, proactiveness, and accountability to put all the results together. So you're looking at communication on Slack, any sort of results all condemned into one place, and then automatically scoring clients depending on how well they're performing. So you can get an idea of exactly what you need to do to actually fix it. This is basically a system that again uses visibility, proactiveness, and accountability to predict and fight churn. If you want more information on that, then check out some of the links in the description. I'm sure there'll be a ton of different resources that you can check out to get more information or how you can even apply to get started work with us. And that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions regarding anything or you have any errors, then go ahead and leave a comment. I'm back on YouTube for a bit now. I'm going to try and record as many YouTube videos as possible for you guys to give you guys some value and build up some goodwill. So again, if you do have any questions, we're a very, very small channel. Drop them in the comments and I'm going to make sure to give you an in-depth response. And the more you comment, the more you like the video, you're going to get other similar videos like this from me and other creators who are dropping value-based content to actually help you grow your agency the right way. And in this case, hopefully predict your client churn. All right, guys, that's pretty much it from me. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. If you have any questions, again, leave them in the comments and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.